Listen, there is an ancient story that many people were never meant to read, and once you hear it, it stays with you. It speaks of heaven and earth touching in a way that felt wrong even to the ancient world. Some early readers felt fear, others felt confusion. Before we go deeper into this hidden ancient story, subscribe if you want to explore truths most people never hear about, because what comes next was almost erased from history. The story comes from a text called the Book of Enoch. It is very old, older than many books people read today. It was known by early Jewish groups and early Christians, but it was later pushed aside, not because it was boring, but because it was disturbing. It raised questions that leaders did not want people asking, questions about authority, about limits, about what happens when sacred rules are ignored. The Book of Enoch is not part of most modern Bibles. That alone makes people suspicious of it. But its removal does not mean it was unknown. Ancient writers referenced it often. Copies were found hidden in desert caves. This tells us something important. People were reading it. People were thinking about it, and people were struggling with what it meant. At the center of the story is a group of angels, often called watchers. They were meant to observe the world, not change it. Their role was to remain separate, to watch, to guide silently. But according to the text, some of them became fascinated with humanity, not in a romantic way, but in a way that crossed a sacred line. They wanted what was not theirs to take. Listen, this is where the story becomes uncomfortable, even without detail. These beings stepped outside their purpose. They mixed what was meant to stay apart. The text describes this as a breaking of order, a violation of balance. The problem is not desire. The problem is disobedience. The watchers knew the limits and crossed them anyway. The result was not beauty or unity. It was corruption. The story says that when divine boundaries fall, the world suffers. Knowledge was given too soon. Power was placed in the wrong hands. Humans were taught things they were not ready to carry. Violence grew. Pride grew. Confusion spread across the earth. Some readers take these beings literally. Others see them as symbols, symbols of leaders, symbols of forces, symbols of ideas that rise too high and forget their place. The text itself does not ask us to choose one view. It simply tells the story and shows the consequences. It is important to say this clearly. These are ancient religious narratives. They are not proven history. They reflect how early people tried to explain chaos in their world. Floods, wars, moral collapse. They used stories to describe what happens when order is broken, when those with power forget restraint. Listen, ancient readers were disturbed because this story challenged a simple view of the universe. It suggested that even heavenly beings could fall, that being close to the divine did not guarantee wisdom, that authority without humility leads to ruin. This was a dangerous idea in a world built on strict hierarchy. The Book of Enoch also raised another fear. If boundaries between heaven and earth could blur, then nothing felt safe. The divine was no longer distant. It could interfere. It could fail. That thought alone was enough to make leaders uncomfortable. It threatened control. It threatened certainty. There is a quiet emotional weight in this story. Humans often want guidance from above. They want help. They want answers. But when help comes without limits, it can harm instead of heal. The story seems to mourn that loss of balance. It is less about angels and more about responsibility. Listen, there is a moment many readers feel but cannot name. It is the fear that comes when the line between the sacred and the human becomes unclear. We want meaning, but we fear the cost. We want truth, but we fear what it might demand from us. This story lives in that tension. Why do stories like this survive for thousands of years? There's a simple reason. Taboo stories carry warnings. Psychology shows that the mind remembers what feels dangerous. Cultures pass down stories that say, "Do not cross this line. Do not reach too far. Do not assume you are ready for power just because you want it. The Book of Enoch survived because it spoke to a deep human anxiety, the fear of knowledge without wisdom, the fear of leaders who forget limits, the fear that order is fragile. These fears did not belong only to the ancient world, they still belong to us. Over time, the story became labeled as too strange, too risky, too open to wild interpretation, so it was set aside. But setting something aside does not erase it, it waits, and when people find it again, the shock returns, not because of what it says about angels, but because of what it suggests about us.
Listen, the hidden truth here is not about forbidden beings, it is about boundaries. The story warns that when any being, human or symbolic, steps beyond its role, the cost is paid by everyone. Order collapses slowly at first, then all at once. The Book of Enoch ends not with excitement, but with judgment and consequence. Not punishment for curiosity, but for arrogance. It reminds readers that limits exist for a reason, that humility is not weakness, that knowing where you belong is a form of wisdom. So when people ask why this story still unsettles us, the answer is simple. It holds up a mirror. It asks what happens when we reach too high without understanding the ground beneath us. It asks whether progress without restraint is really progress at all. In the end, the message is calm and clear. The danger was never contact between worlds. The danger was forgetting boundaries, forgetting humility, forgetting responsibility. And that is why this ancient story, hidden for so long, still whispers a warning worth hearing.